All right, in this tutorial, we're going to go through how to create that Adobe pattern that we see that falls on the background of this building that we'll all be working on at some point towards the end of the semester. Here's the texture map or the UV map that I opened up from the 3D file that comprises this building. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a repeated pattern that gives me that texture. And I've got to actually fabricate it based on a photo. So in this process, we'll be going back and forth from photo to art that we create ourselves. In this case, I'm going to sample a piece of a photo. So I've downloaded an Adobe structure because I'm looking for that New Mexico kind of feel. So I zoomed in on my file and I looked for a consistent piece of that texture. I found it over here above the door. It has a value, it's a little darker than I wanted, so this will work pretty well. So I'm making sure that I select a square. You'll see why in a moment. So I've made my selection, and then I'm going to go to the file itself. I'll hit Command J, and then I'm going to right click, duplicate the layer, make it a new one, and now I'm going to crop it to that scale. So I'm holding down my command key and I'm clicking on the thumbnail to make a selection. I'll hit C to access the crop tool, and if I tap the return key twice, I have what I need. All right, so I've got one already saved, so I'm going to work with that. All right, so here's the square essentially that I chose. Just going to zoom in on this a little bit. There we go. And now I'm going to make a consistent pattern out of this. So probably the best way to do it in the context of this texture would be go to Filter, Other, and Offset. Okay. Now, it's important that I know that the proportions of this file. So I'm going to go to my image size. And it's telling me it's 272 by 272. So I'm looking for 138 by 138. And you'll see why in a moment. If I go back, I go to Filter, Other, Offset. I'm going to make each of these numbers 138 by 138. And you'll see that what it's done, it's made a 4-section pattern out of this, but all of these sides are identical, so that when I make a pattern out of this, the left and the right will match on both these, all 4 of these panels. The top and the bottoms will match on those panels. So now all I have to do is really kind of clone this a bit to get rid of the pattern that's created by default. There's really no way around that. So if I wanted to, I could put a new layer on and use my clone tool, but I'm feeling pretty lucky today, so I'll go right for the clone tool and I'll work directly on this layer. So I'll simply go in there and start to sample some of these things I'm going to use to kind of patch this up so it doesn't look so tile-like. So you just take your time if you need to and just eliminate those harsh lines you might see. I might make my brush a little larger and then go in and just anywhere there might be a chance of it looking repetitive, I'm going to work on it. So I've got what I want now. So I'm going to copy and paste it into my model's UV map. But first I'm going to make a selection of it. And then I'm going to go to Edit. And I'm going to choose Define Pattern. Just a note I think bears repeating again and again is that make sure that your marquee has no feather on it. And remember that you have to make the selection the first time. You can't adjust the selection. You won't be able to access that pattern tool. So there we have it. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to jump over to my atlas. And now if I wanted to, I could define the area a bit on a new layer. So I'll throw a new layer in. And in the case of all these models, you can always go a bit outside the edge. Just be aware of the other elements that are actually on this atlas. So you'll have to either edit or make your selections a little bit more precise. So let me just go on and try that again. And then I'll hold my Option key and I'll cut out this little bit where it would have crossed over the door. So now I'm just going to go up to Edit, Fill. I'll go to my Pattern menu. And in my Pattern menu, the last entry is the one I just fabricated. So if we were to go ahead and turn off the UV map and save, check our update, you'll see a pretty decent pattern.